All right, welcome to Hoops Tonight here at The Volume. Happy Wednesday, everybody. I hope all of you guys are having a great week so far. Round one coverage of the NBA playoffs here at Hoops Tonight is brought to you by Chase Freedom Unlimited. How do you cash back? We have a jam-packed day for the show today. We're going to be releasing 4 different videos on YouTube. In this video, just going to focus on the series that didn't end last night, Hawks-Celtics, as the Celtics blew a late 12-point lead and Trae Young stole the game with a game winner. We're going to go through like an old-fashioned anatomy of a comeback on that one. I'm going to go possession by possession from 111 to 99 all the way through to the finish and kind of talk about how I see the end of that series going. Then later this afternoon, we're going to have a series preview breaking down the first of what should be 4 incredible second-round series between the Nuggets and the Suns. Just going to do a deep dive series preview there, including a prediction. And then tonight, we're going to have 2 videos get uploaded. We're going to have a video right after Lakers-Grizzlies and a video right after Kings-Warriors. If I'm able to successfully watch both games at the same time, we'll also do Knicks, Cavs, and Heat-Bucks Game 5. If for whatever reason I don't feel like I have a good feel for those 2 games that are on the background, I'll hit them tomorrow morning. But no matter what, we're going to have 2 videos tonight, one after Lakers-Grizzlies and one after Warriors-Suns. So 4 videos on YouTube tonight. Keep an eye on the feeds. You guys know the drill before we get started. Subscribe to the Volume's YouTube channel so you don't miss any more of our videos. Follow me on Twitter at _JasonLT so you guys don't miss any show announcements. And if for whatever reason you miss one of these videos and you can't get back over to YouTube to finish, don't forget you can find them wherever you get your podcasts under Hoops Tonight. All right, let's talk some basketball. So, Celtics were up 111 to 99. And one of the biggest things that we looked at with the Celtics coming into this postseason was, hey, like, last year they had execution problems for extended stretches. You know, their offense would look a certain way and their talent would shine through, because I actually think they have the most talented roster in the NBA. And their talent would shine through and they look excellent. And then they would kind of stop driving the ball to the basket. And when they did drive the ball to the basket, they'd make poor rim decisions. And their offense would fall apart for extended stretches, and nobody on their team really has the ability to gain control of it. And so they could blow games. And they had a lot of really ugly losses last year in the playoffs that they probably had no business losing, especially as they went to 7 against 2 teams that they were significantly better than, the Bucks without Chris Middleton and the Miami Heat. Their execution problems were something we were going to keep an eye on. And then all over the course of the regular season, they looked a little bit better in those ways, especially early in the season. Their clutch numbers were significantly better than they were the previous season. But we had a bunch of ugly losses kind of in the way that would just prevent you from feeling a certain way, right? They had that really bad loss to the Warriors earlier in the season. And then later in the year, they had 3 or 4 kind of ugly collapses here or there that cause problems, right? That just enough to prevent you from feeling super confident. Now, in the Celtics' defense, every team in this first round has appeared flawed. The Bucks are literally down 3-1 to the Miami Heat. They were my team I picked to win the title. The Celtics were my second biggest championship favorite, so to speak, and they are now 3-2 headed on the road to Atlanta, right? Philly, you've got the Joel Embiid knee issue. Denver put Minnesota away in 5, but they kind of struggled with them in 3 of the 5 games, right? Like that's a legit. They had they trailed late in game 2. They lost game 4, and then in this game they seem to be having their hands full with this Minnesota Timberwolves team that's down Naz Reid, literally doesn't have a backup center, down their best perimeter defender. So Denver hasn't looked overly impressive, although I'd say that if I had to pick one team out of the slate of 8 contenders that I had going into the postseason, I think I had 7 because I didn't count the Clippers. Out of those 7 teams, I'd say Denver probably looked the most impressive, but they didn't really look impressive. And even Jokic had some stretches in last night's game where he didn't look very good, right? So no one looks great. The Lakers tricked off a game in game 2 and really struggled to put away the Grizzlies in game 4. The Warriors tied the series, but again, like had a 3 from Harrison Barnes that could have put them away. Phoenix persistently trailed against the Clippers before winning that series. Like, no one looks good. So when I'm being critical of Boston today, let's accept the fact that everyone looks bad in various ways. And the NBA this particular season feels more wide open than any that I can remember in recent NBA history. But last night was yet another example. It didn't take long. And again, The Hawks are probably, if we were ranking the 16 playoff teams, I think I'd rank them 15th. I think the only team they're clearly better than is the Brooklyn Nets. I think Minnesota's better. I think they're a better defensive team by a country mile than the Hawks are. Hawks obviously have some offensive talent that Minnesota doesn't have, but there's not another team that you'll see anywhere in the first round that's worse than the Hawks other than Brooklyn, for sure. They're at least in that conversation. And Boston just blew yet another big playoff lead and a big home closeout opportunity against them. So that's concerning. But what I want to do is I want to take it was similar issues. It was the same stuff that cropped up for Boston last year that ended up being the problem in this game. So we're going to go like we did during the regular season a bunch. We're going to do the anatomy of a comeback. We're going to start from where they were in best position to secure the win and go through the end on a possession-by-possession basis and look at how they blew this game. So it's 111-99. I believe there were about 6 minutes left or 5 minutes left at this point. Starts with Atlanta on offense. Trae Young working in pick and roll, kind of goes along the right side, makes a beautiful wraparound pass to Onyeka Okongwu on the left side of the rim, who finishes with his left hand. And now it's a 10-point game. Consistent theme here is excellent Trae Young. And I will say that for a guy that I was pretty critical of early in this series, and a guy that in his playoff career has had a lot of duds, he's had some really, truly impressive performances in this particular playoff series that I think are very exciting. So he makes a wraparound pass to Okongwu. It's a 10-point game. Boston goes down, and Jayson Tatum literally just dribbles out the shot clock and takes a contested pull-up three and misses it. Okay, so rough start on the Boston execution end, but sometimes that happens when you have a late lead. You're just trying to kill clock. You're just trying to get to the end of the game. It's okay to do that, or it's acceptable, I should say, to have a handful of possessions like that mixed in. But it's a recurring theme that becomes the problem. Hawks come down. Bojan Bogdanovic and John Collins run a dribble handoff on the left side of the floor. John Collins pitches it to Bogdanovic. Bogdanovic dribbles off, and the Celtics actually trap him on the wing. And it's kind of a weak trap, but they force him to get rid of the basketball, but it's an easy pass. So he just drops it off to John Collins, rolling to the rim. Robert Williams steps over and help. John Collins powers through his chest, finishes with his left hand over the top. So now it's an 8-point game. So now Jaylen Brown ISOs Bojan Bogdanovic. And he kind of works him down to the left elbow, but instead of trying to power through him with physicality to get closer to the rim, he takes an extremely difficult turnaround fadeaway over his left shoulder from the elbow that he leaves short, which is something that can commonly happen on extremely difficult fadeaways, especially 15 feet away from the rim. So back-to-back possessions, no dribble penetration, long contested jump shot. Now the Celtics start switching everything. So the Hawks start trying to attack Al Horford. Bojan Bogdanovic gets Al Horford on a switch. Remember, it's an 8-point game now. He just beats Al Horford off the dribble to the left. Draws help, makes a kick-out pass. Jaylen Brown gets sucked in. He makes a kick-out pass to John Collins in the right corner. John Collins had an excellent game in this particular one. I think he hit 4 threes. He drives. Jaylen Brown has a nice closeout. John Collins drives to his left, power dribble, and again, same type of size advantage that Jaylen Brown had over Bojan Bogdanovic, except for Jaylen Brown turned it into a fadeaway over Bogdanovic. John Collins is a little bit bigger than Jaylen Brown. He goes aggressively into him with the spin move as opposed to away from him with the spin move. Powers through him and makes a really nice bank shot off the glass. Now it's back to 6. And again, really nice physical aggressive move from John Collins. Really impressive game all around, I thought, from John Collins. So now again, notice what our trend is here. In this run, it's gone from 111-99 to 111-105. In this run, it's been layup for the Hawks, contested jump shot for the Celtics. Layup for the Hawks, contested jumper for the Celtics, driving layup for the Hawks. So that's the difference in offensive process that has led to this little 6-0 run. So now on the next possession, the Hawks actually do a random double team of Jayson Tatum. So Tatum is trying to attack Bogdanovic kind of along the right elbow extended out to the free throw line. And DeAndre Hunter just does a random double team. And in the double team, if you watch DeAndre Hunter, he's jumping as high as he possibly can, throwing his arms up in the air, being super active on the ball. And Jayson Tatum throws the pass over the top away from the double team, and it ends up getting tipped from DeAndre Hunter, which leads to a run out. Now, again, compare that with the trap of Bogdanović on the left wing from Boston. It's a weak, lazy trap. And what I would always say is, like, in those traps, you have to apply tons of ball pressure. And the reason why is if you apply ball pressure, you might get a tip of the pass, or at the very least, you're going to force a pass fake in a pass from a different angle, or a pass that's not perfectly on target, which buys your defense so much more time to rotate out of it. So a weak trap gave John Collins a easy feed and leverage situation on Robert Williams to finish at the rim. A really difficult and energetic and athletic trap from Atlanta forces a turnover on Jayson Tatum. You guys can kind of see the difference there. After the deflection, he ends up drawing a foul. Then the Hawks inbound the ball, and Trae Young gets Al Horford on a switch, and he drills a step-back three. Okay, first of many step-back threes that Trae Young's going to hit here down the stretch of this game. Notice that's the first really tough shot that Atlanta has taken during this run. They got their rhythm attacking the rim. Now Trae's feeling good about himself because he's made a couple of plays. Now he feels comfortable going to that step-back three. Hits Al Horford with it, knocks it down. Now it's 111 to 108. Next possession. Jayson Tatum and Marcus Smart run a pick and roll. And DeAndre Hunter hedges and recovers to the rim. Okay. On the play, Marcus Smart has the ball. Tatum setting the screen. Trae Young is guarding Marcus Smart. Trae Young runs into the screen and Tatum rolls to the basket. Now, in a typical hedge and recover situation, what you're trying to do, DeAndre Hunter is trying to get out and slow down Marcus Smart enough for Trae Young to get back. Then when Trae Young gets back, DeAndre Hunter is going to recover back to Jayson Tatum on the roll. Okay? So Marcus Smart is trying to hit Jayson Tatum on the roll because DeAndre Hunter is out at the three-point line and Tatum's kind of open. But Trae Young does his job. As he's sprinting back up to Marcus Smart in the play, he's got his hands up and is active. And so when Marcus Smart tries to throw that over-the-top pass to Jayson Tatum on the roll, Trae Young deflects it and forces a turnover. That's 4 consecutive possessions now from the Celtics where they generated 0 rim pressure. 4 possessions where not a single Celtic drove the ball aggressively towards the rim. The closest thing was Jaylen Brown taking a fadeaway jump shot. It's been a lot of just standing around at the perimeter, taking contested jump shots, passing around on the perimeter without attacking the rim. Now, Trae Young runs another pick and roll along the right side of the floor. So they were switching aggressively with Al Horford, and they were running drop coverage with Robert Williams. So Jaylen Brown is guarding Trae Young on this play. They're on the right wing. Again, 111, 108. Okongwu comes up and sets a screen. Robert Williams is in drop coverage. He's way too far back, which is something that pretty consistently happened with Robert Williams in the playoffs last year. He's just a little bit hesitant in his drop coverage to come high out of the screen, although he had a good possession later in this game. Too low in the drop. Trae Young just comes right over the top of the screen and walks into a shot he practices all the time, a pull-up three going to his right, knocks it down. Now it's 111 to 111. Then Boston finally has their first good offensive possession of this stretch. Now the game's already tied. The damage is done, but Boston wakes up and runs a good offensive possession. So Marcus Smart runs a pick and roll. I can't remember which one of the Jays he runs it with, but he ends up splitting the pick and roll, which is an aggressive move to the basket. When he splits the pick and roll, he gets downhill towards the rim. He ends up drawing John Collins in help off of Al Horford in the right corner. So Marcus Smart makes a really nice kick-out pass as he's at the rim to Al Horford. A good rim decision. Al Horford actually misses the three, but here's how valuable rim pressure is. Not only does Marcus Smart draw John Collins into the play and help, he also draws Onyeka Okongwu into the play and help. And Onyeka Okongwu leaves his feet, and Smart actually hits his body as he's making the pass. And so Onyeka Okongwu is basically out of the play now. Who's Onyeka Okongwu guarding? Robert Williams. So now Robert Williams is under the basket, completely unguarded on the missed Al Horford three, gets it, gets an offensive rebound, put back, gets fouled. He misses the free throw. But again, benefit of rim pressure. Even though you not only did you generate a wide open three for a great corner three-point shooter, you also occupied both rim protectors, which allowed your other center to have offensive rebound position. That's why it's so important to have an offensive process that begins with, at the earliest phase of the possession, attempting to generate rim pressure. If it's 6 or 7 seconds left in the shot clock and you've already tried and failed, then you can start going to your contested dribble jump shots. That's where rescue possessions come into the equation. Now I'm trying to rescue a bad possession. That makes sense. But fundamentally, your offensive process needs to begin with rim pressure, or you're not going to be able to consistently generate good shots. So Trae Young finally cools off. It's 113-111. He gets Horford on a switch and misses a step back three. I thought he actually got decent separation. He just missed the shot. Then the Celtics run down and Marcus Smart sets in a legal screen. So they don't get an opportunity to generate any rim pressure on that possession either. Now 5 out of 6 possessions in this stretch, they fail to drive the ball to the basket. So on the next possession, Trae Young runs a pick and roll on the left side of the floor. That involves Horford. And this time, just randomly, Marcus Smart and Al Horford trap Trae Young on the left side of the floor. Trae Young smartly attacks the slower of the two. He attacks Horford going left, drives kind of towards the short corner, and he ends up drawing a foul on Al Horford. Didn't love the call, but again, it's the kind of it was a 50. It was probably by the book a foul, but it was one of those classic ones that in a playoff series I'd rather not see called. But then Tatum gets a tech complaining about the call, and Trae Young hits all 3 free throws. And now it's 114-113 with 136 left. And that one specific free throw ended up kind of changing the dynamic of the game, because instead of it being Boston in a situation where Atlanta buckets were tying them, Atlanta buckets were now putting them up one, and we're kind of going up one, up one, up one down the stretch. So that tech ended up being a big play. So now the Celtics come down and they're trying to run a play to get Trae Young switched onto Jayson Tatum. And on the play, Trae Young actually ends up gambling on Derek White. And when he gambles on Derek White drives to the basket. When he does, Jaylen Brown's man, Bojan Bogdanovic, has to step over and help on Trae Young. On Derek White. And so Derek White drops the ball to Jaylen Brown, and Jaylen Brown starts barreling towards the rim. Here's the problem. They didn't have their spacing set up properly because they were actually trying to run a play for Jayson Tatum. So in a weird way, the gamble from Trae Young, even though it got a little bit of downhill pressure, it had the Celtics in a situation where they weren't set up for drive and kick, because what they really were trying to do was get the ball to Tatum. So there's nobody in the left corner. Robert Williams is in the dunker spot. Jayson Tatum is at the top of the key because he thought he was going to get the ball in a switch. Derek White just made the pass to Jaylen Brown. Al Horford's in the right corner. So Jaylen Brown's going downhill, and he has nowhere to go, and he leaves his feet, which is mistake number one. You don't want to leave your feet. It's better for you to just jump stop or pick up your dribble and pivot around until you find somebody open. But he leaves his feet. And because you don't have normal spacing principles, you don't have your man in the corner, he doesn't have anybody to pass to. Robert Williams is doing what a lot of guys do as a guy is driving towards the left side of the rim. A lot of times the guy in the dunker spot is trained to go back to the right side of the rim because you want to give a good, clean passing angle. So as Robert Williams is cutting behind the basket, Jaylen Brown tries to float a pass up to Robert Williams, but it's behind him. Again, that's the problem. He's driving this way. Tatum's back this way. Robert Williams is back this way. There's nobody in front of him. So every pass he has to make now is across his body, which is way more difficult to hit a guy on time on target when it's going across your body. Again, I understand the idea of Trae Young gambled. We have a driving lane. Let's attack. But when you don't have spacing principles set up, all Bogdanovic has to do is, or all the Hawks have to do is somewhat mildly contain Jaylen Brown and force him to pass, and he has nowhere to pass. On that possession, even though Trae Young gambled, stick with your play. All of your floor spacing is set up to get Tatum a mismatch. You're not set up for drive and kick in that situation. If you want to play drive and kick, space the floor and set yourself up for drive and kick. It was a crucial turnover down the stretch in this game. So 114-113, and the Hawks have the ball. They run another pick and roll at the top of the key with Trae Young against Rob Williams again. And this time Rob Williams corrects his mistake on the earlier pull-up three, comes way further out of his drop to contest. Actually nearly blocks the shot, and Trae Young ends up missing badly. The Celtics run down, and they actually get a good offensive possession that ends in a bad result, just some bad luck. So Jaylen Brown runs a pick and roll, and Onyeka Okongwu is out of position in his drop coverage. He's too far off to the right. So Jaylen Brown has an angle to attack his left shoulder. Jaylen Brown gets downhill. Okongwu kind of recovers and contests the shot and forces Jaylen Brown into a tough, kind of hook shot across his body. But John Collins also comes over and help Okongwu. So Okongwu and John Collins come over to Jaylen Brown. So again, who's Okongwu guarding? Robert Williams. So Jaylen Brown kind of shoots the hook shot over the rim, and Robert Williams is right under the basket. and catches it and just smokes a wide open layup directly under the rim. So good process, just bad luck, unfortunately. Trae Young on the next possession. He gets Al Horford on a switch, beats him off the dribble, but he misses like a left-handed scoop shot that ends up getting wedged into the rim, right? 114-113 Hawks. We go to center court. There's a jump ball. On the jump ball, somehow, I have no idea how, they end up losing Robert Williams. The Celtics win the jump. Tatum throws a lob from almost half court, and Robert Williams dunks it. So now the Celtics are up 115-114. Trae Young dribbles the ball up the court, crosses half court, right in that like kind of dead zone that's right where the half court line and the sideline is, in that like trap zone. But Trae Young's a good ball handler, and he turns his back and he protects the basketball. And Marcus Smart, right in front of the ref. Like, the ref is as far away from this play as the camera is from me right now. Like, a couple of feet. And Marcus Smart just swipes with his right hand at the basketball. And again, like, do I love it as a playoff foul? Probably not. But you're in the penalty. You're right in front of the ref. The one thing you can control is your defense. You might be able to force them into you're probably going to be able to force them into a really tough shot, and you're probably going to get a stop. By reaching in, you have now put the ref in a predicament. He has two options. He can ignore the mild contact, or he can call a foul. You put the control of that possession in the hands of the ref, and the ref ended up blowing the whistle. Then Trae Young goes to the line, knocks down both free throws. Now the Hawks are up one again. It's 116-115. The Celtics inbound with 9 seconds left now. So this is basically the final possession. And the Hawks make a critical mistake. Trae Young is guarding the inbounder. The inbounder is Derek White. And a lot of times, like, what I would do as a coach is I would always insist on having whoever's guarding the inbounder just jump up and down in front of the inbounder and try to be as big as possible and as much of an impediment as possible. Why? Two things. First of all, it makes that inbounds pass difficult. Same concept we were talking about with the trap. You get a deflection, or you force a looping pass or a pass fake that prevents the offensive set from getting the ball exactly where they want it at exactly the time they want it. But secondly, and most importantly, now you're accounting for the inbounder. Trae Young, the only time you want to potentially ignore the inbounder is directly under the rim, on the baseline under the rim. In that case, it's actually helpful to have your guy guarding the inbounder stand between him and the rim. Now you're protecting the rim. That's the one time that I personally advocate for ignoring the inbounder, because then at the very least, you're taking away the rim and forcing him to go out for a jump shot. But even then, after he passes somewhere that's not the rim, you can quick lock and trail as the guy guarding him. On the sideline, though, I disagreed with it. Trae Young's got his back turned to Derek White. They inbound to Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Brown just throws it right back to Derek White, and Trae Young's completely out of position. Derek White just drives on him immediately. Trae Young tries to recover, but it's a clear-cut blocking foul. He basically throws himself in Derek White's way and then falls over. This was a clear-cut foul. Derek White goes to the line and makes both free throws. So, couple of silly mistakes from both teams defensively, just in terms of risk on defense from Marcus Smart with the reach, and then tactically from the Hawks by having Trae Young ignore the inbounder. Suddenly we trade a bunch of free throws, and the Celtics are back up one. And then Trae Young catches in the backcourt. Kind of reminded me of the shot that Jayson Tatum hit to beat the Sixers, if you guys remember, when it was 100-100, and Tatum catches in the backcourt. He started in the backcourt, then he back cuts, and then he catches on the move, and then he does like a hard pound back dribble and gets a ton of separation, and he knocks down that three at the top of the key. Trae Young basically did the live dribble version of that. He goes way into the backcourt, catches it, dribbles up with pace, like fast, like he's going to drive to the basket, which is a real threat because he's won games with floaters before. He's got a deadly floater. They're only down one, so a floater wins the game. And so as a result, Jaylen Brown's back on his heels. And when he's back on his heels, right at about that 28-foot mark, Trae Young just does that hard pullback dribble. Gets plenty of separation. He had already knocked down 2 pull-up threes on earlier possessions. He had also just hit 2 free throws. Don't underestimate that part. And the rhythm you gain from releasing shots at the free throw line, knocks down the 3 and wins the game. The Celtics get a desperation heave from Jayson Tatum that didn't really have any chance of going in. And now all of a sudden it's 3-2, and we are headed back to Atlanta for Game 6. So first of all, shout out to Trae Young, and shout out to John Collins, and shout out to Bojan Bogdanovic and their offensive execution down the stretch of that game. The Hawks were extremely impressive. Second of all, the C's are in a little bit of trouble. They are the better team. It's clear when you watch the film. Also, they're soundly outscoring Atlanta when the Jays are on the floor. They're +5 net, which doesn't seem like much compared to some other numbers that we see during the regular season. But in a playoff game, when all the starters are playing bigger minutes, to be consistently 5 points better per 100 possessions, that's a pretty hefty gap there. They were up double digits late, and they blew it, right? Like similar to the Bucks, like you're up double digits midway through the fourth quarter. Like you should win that game, but they just didn't. They blew it. They tricked it off. As a result, they've lost some margin for error in this series. Game 6 in Atlanta, it's going to be a tough game. I would imagine the Celtics will be a 1 or 2 point favorite, but the Hawks have a very good chance to win that game. It's not just that you're going back to Atlanta. You're going back to Atlanta with them feeling like they have a real chance to win the series now. There is going to be a belief within the Hawks that permeates through the crowd and that brings an excellent effort from them. Not to mention DeJounte Murray will be back. And if they win that game, which again is probably going to, I expect the Celtics to win, and we'll get into it. But if they win that game, anything can happen in Game 7. Trae Young hits 5 step-back threes, and it's close late, and then somebody hits a tough shot, and one of your guys misses, you lose the series. Like, the margin for error has vanished now. They have to go win. I expect Boston to win Game 6. This is a particular situation that we ran into with the Celtics a lot last year. For instance, they blew pivotal home games at 3 different points during the playoff stretch. First against Milwaukee. Game 5 at home. Series is tied at 2. You fall down 2-1 to Milwaukee, and you have a really impressive win in Game 4 where you look like the better team. If I remember correctly, they won soundly in Game 4. So now you're going home. You're clearly the better team. You're at home. Chance to take a 3-2 lead. They lost that game through a lot of the same execution problems we've talked about in this video. Game 6 at home versus Miami. You had just dominated Miami in Game 5. You're headed home to close them out. Chance to go to the NBA Finals in front of your home crowd against a team you're clearly better than that you just beat the shit out of. And they lost that game. Game 4 at home against Golden State in the finals. You're up 2-1. It's not actually a closeout game, but it's the closest thing to it. You go up 3-1, your odds of winning the series are monumentally larger. They found a way to lose that game. Now, credit to Golden State. Golden State is a much better team than Miami and Milwaukee was. And also, Steph Curry was clearly the best player in the series, and he destroyed them in Game 4. But, point being, they struggled to win important home games in the playoffs, especially as the series progresses. But in 2 of those 3 situations, they bounced back. After dropping Game 5 against Milwaukee at home, they went to Milwaukee in Game 6 and they won. After dropping Game 4 against after dropping Game 6 at home versus Miami, they went on the road to Miami in Game 7 and won. Even in Game 4 at home versus Golden State when they blew that, Game 5, they went back to Golden State. They lost, but they were competitive. They were down 1 going into the fourth quarter. So they typically bounce back well from these types of performances. I expect Boston to win Game 6, but they are cutting into their margin for error. And what's concerning is, again, I don't think Atlanta's very good compared to some of the competition they're going to face down the line. But the biggest question mark surrounding Boston coming into the playoffs was their consistency of offensive execution, their tendency to go away from driving to the basket, and then their propensity to force things at the basket and not make good decisions when they get there. Those 2 specific issues have consistently come to the surface for this team. And it's concerning that already in round 1, we're starting to see those problems. But again, like I said earlier, every team is flawed. And that's the silver lining if you're a Celtics fan, is like you're not the only team that's struggling a little bit in round 1. All right, guys, that's all I have for this particular video. We will be back in a few hours this afternoon with a series preview of Nuggets Suns. And then don't forget, we have breakdowns for both slates later tonight. As always, I appreciate you guys, and I'll see you in a few hours.